Welcome back, America. Jonathan Williams is the president and chief economist for one of my sponsors, the American Legislative Exchange Council, and he's the rarest kind of economist. He's one that I can understand. Jonathan, I have a big question for you. I read a very alarming piece this week about America as a 2% country, a 2% GDP growth country. If we only achieve 2% GDP growth, we can't get out of our problems. In fact, they'll overtake us. If we get to 3 and 4 and 5%, we can get out of our problems. Does the big, beautiful bill move us towards 3, 4, 5%, or does it not?
I think it certainly does, Hugh, and I think that's something I've seen my good friend and co-author Steve Moore talk about too. Is we've got to get spending under control, and the big beautiful bill does some important things there, as we've talked about on Medicaid and work requirements and other important disciplined reforms that have been needed in Washington for a very long time. We need to do more, of course, and we need to come back and keep working on the correcting for the overspending problem and the binge that DC's been on for a long time. But the other critical piece to that is the economic growth piece, Hugh. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when you get to 3% or better economic growth over the long term, that absolutely can be a major driver in getting us out from under the $36 trillion of national debt that we're under. And, one of the best ways to do that first is, of course, stop making any unforced errors and don't let the Trump tax cuts expire. And that's, of course, what's being talked about right now in Washington. And then we need to look for creative ways to continue to move the ball forward. But I certainly think the big, beautiful bill moves us in the direction of 3% economic growth. And we cannot be content as a nation, even though that's what some of these doom and gloom economists are talking about. We cannot be content with 1 or 2% GDP growth.
Now, Jonathan, I believe if the tax cuts are made permanent, especially the expensing, the world will look at America as the place to invest their money, because they know there's not going to ever be 60 senators to roll this back. It's really hard to even imagine anyone wanting to terribly dent the permanent tax code changes. Do you like the Senate version because it goes all in forever?
Absolutely. I mean, the permanency is a huge aspect of this. And one of the great things about the Senate version as well is I think it goes at the proper treatment of the state and local tax deduction, or SALT. That's something that we've talked about many times. They get that back down to the current law treatment of $10,000 cap per year versus the House's $40,000 cap that was really, really high. Our legislators continue to stress the importance of not rewarding the big government states that are spending and taxing too much, and then asking the rest of America to pick up the tab through the federal tax code. In fact, we just a couple of days ago relaunched our ALEC legislator letter with now 550 state legislators from 48 states, Hugh, saying permanency for the tax cuts, and also that key element of let's let states compete with each other and get rid of that SALT distortion to tax competition and stop rewarding high tax states.
If we had 5 more Republicans, it would be easy, but we need Mike Lawler, and we might need young Kim in California. I think Steve Daines floated the compromise, Jonathan, which is bring it down to 30% and cut it off for people making $200,000 or more. In other words, if someone's got a huge property tax bill or a huge state income tax bill in one of these blue states and they're poor, let's help them out. What do you think of that? Do you think the ALEC members would sigh and accept, because the reality of politics is we got to pass the bill?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable compromise. I mean, I think it's clear the policy should be SALT shouldn't exist. That's not the world that we live in right now. And I think, creative thinking like that, or to equalize on a marriage penalty basis, like some have talked about at a $20,000 limit, are reasonable alternatives. I think $40,000 seems awfully high, and it obviously dents a major factor in the CBO score over the 10-year. Either requires us not to cut taxes elsewhere, or it drives up the deficit. So I think we do need to address it in one of those ways.
Oh, it's very inequitable. It's a windfall to wealthy people. And I don't mean 2 income people making $300,000. I mean wealthy people, 7-figure income people. Love that deduction. And we can't write a tax code for them. Let me ask you about the thing I didn't like in the Senate bill. The House put 23% pass through for small businesses, of which I am one and of which most of America is involved in. Do you think that's going to go somewhere between 20 and 23 because it's back down to 20 in the Senate bill?
Yeah, I think that's a huge element of things. I really hope so. I mean, the small business aspect, I mean, this is one of the things why states are taking such a keen role in reducing individual income taxes. As states are looking to phase out income taxes across the board, they're focusing on the individual income tax because that's where the vast majority of small businesses file across the United States. And Americans, sometimes we forget that almost all the net new job creation in this country has happened because of small businesses, of entrepreneurs. And we need to make sure whatever is coming out of Washington or states when it comes to tax policy doesn't disadvantage entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Now, Jonathan, a little inside baseball. I'm going to have dinner with you and Lisa and some ALEC people this week. I'm going to ask you, are you going to do a big fly-in? Because I think state legislators are the most effective lobbyists in the country because they actually know what the Senate and the House have to go through. They do it every day in their own life. Is the push coming to get this thing across the finish line? Because we've got to get it done.
Well, I think you're right. And our sister organization, ALEC Action, is coordinating the outreach efforts to Capitol Hill using this legislator letter with 550 voices on it. We're continuing to add to that. So I would love to have everyone who's listening talk to your state legislator and see, are they involved with the ALEC Action effort? We've only got 2 states missing off the letter, and that is Vermont and Hawaii. And so we're almost rounding out in all 50 states. But the voice of the states, to your point, Hugh, is awfully important right now. There are other groups out there claiming, hey, states don't want to do Medicaid reform. States don't want to see a SALT limit that's lower. ALEC and our members are playing a key role in delivering that message.
I absolutely think they are critical, and you're right. I'm not going to worry about Vermont and Hawaii not being in the game. And in fact, if we could trade them both for British Columbia, it might be a pretty good deal. Jonathan, always a pleasure to talk to you. I will see you this week. ALEC.org/Hugh. Go and sign up for the State of the States. You'll get interesting little lists like they did. The most labor-friendly, work-friendly states, top 5, bottom 5 this week. But you got to sign up if you want to find out the good stuff. That's ALEC.org/Hugh. Greatest sponsor in the world. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.